We're doing this again, aren't we? Well, after so many hours, so many kills, so many patches, game dynamics change, opinions change, and I become less of a general idiot. So here is the definitive guide to using your joystick in War Thunder. I hope. This is the controls setup wizard. This is the most important button in the controls setup wizard. For joystick use, you have three options when it comes to general control settings: simplified, realistic, and full real. Simplified, you have almost total control over your aircraft, but you are subject to the whims of the instructor. Now, the instructor will chime in anytime it thinks you're doing a boneheaded move. Not too shabby. I mean, the instructor generally does a pretty good job, but there are some major cases, especially in arcade, where it chiming in can be detrimental to your survival, such as it has a nasty habit of chiming in when you're trying to turn at high speeds, and this can cause you to plow face first into the ground, even with simplified joystick turned off. But still, it has its uses, especially in realistic battles with a more temperamental aircraft like the P-40, which is pretty much a hopeless basket case that flips over at the slightest provocation. The instructor can prevent that from happening. So, it's nice to have in some cases. Full real controls is exactly what it says on the tin. You are responsible for trim, and if you so choose, engine controls. I don't know how well the engine controls are modeled in War Thunder. I generally never use them. If you're playing simulators, this is your only setting. Have fun. I generally stick with realistic controls, a mix between the two. Your trim is handled automatically for you, though in some cases it's not quite perfect, and in some cases it is just completely off the wall. Though Gaijin has said they will fix this. Please. In the bottom right hand corner of the screen is my Thrustmaster HOTAS X. In the top left hand corner of the screen is for my own benefit. Now, the Thrustmaster HOTAS X is a pretty cheap HOTAS system. What, 50, 60 bucks? 40, 50? But it does the job. To be honest with you, I kind of like the feel of the Logitech Extreme 3D Pro quite a bit better. But that stick did not come with one of these. So let's get this thing started in earnest. Our test aircraft, it will be the I-153M62 Cheka, one of the first Russian aircraft you can get, despite its ridiculously high battle rating. For our test environment, we are going to go into the mission editor. Pick a combat theater that is relatively safe for us. Put ourselves in the back line. Pick the free flight scenario. Difficulty level of arcade. And unlimited fuel, ammo, perfect conditions. And away we go. Here it is, the Cheka. Behind us are three AI wingmen. They will follow us around like obedient little puppies. And you can shoot them, and they will respawn if they die. Hard doing this without a rudder. I trust you see the advantages in such an arrangement. So let's begin with what I think is the most important configuration parameter: sensitivity. To demonstrate what sensitivity does, compare the joystick in the lower right hand corner of the screen to the virtual joystick shown in game. Now with the other extreme. A sensitivity at 100% is a perfect 1-to-1. Anything lower will introduce weight to your controls, smoothing out your inputs, and this can be used to make your aircraft more controllable. Now, in general, I want to stay away from extremes for these particular reasons. With a high sensitivity, I make a sharp turn. When I release, the damn thing, it just bounces back. And in some cases, if I pull back too quickly, the plane doesn't really complete the turn all that well. This is what I call bounce. Not the ideal situation when making aiming adjustments. However, high sensitivity does allow you to make split-second maneuvers. With a sensitivity too low, your controls are smooth, and there is no chance of your aircraft bouncing back down at the apex of its turn. However, your controls are unresponsive. Fine-tuning is impossible, and making quick motions is also impossible, leading you to quite possibly ram into other aircraft, garnering the full disdain of the War Thunder community. Not the ideal arrangement. So the trick here is to balance high sensitivity bounce with low sensitivity drift. For your individual control axes, roll is the control surface that is least affected by bounce, so you can have its sensitivity pretty high. High sensitivity will allow you to orientate your aircraft that much faster. I usually keep it at 90% because I'm a little paranoid about extremes. Now, pitch is the predominant method you're going to be using to get anywhere, so its sensitivity value is pretty important. What I do to find that happy medium is, pick a sensitivity. That sounds good. And then test it out by doing thus. Go sideways. Pull back that stick as hard as you can. Remember, if you start bouncing at the apex of your turn, it's a good indication that your sensitivity is too high. This is a little bit of ham-fisting insurance. So while I'm at full tilt, then release. Do it again. Watch my crosshair in relation to the surface. It's pretty good right now, but there's a little bit of bounce. Like my crosshair goes back downward when I let go of the stick. I'm the type of guy who doesn't like that, though some of you guys can learn to deal with it. So for me, well, I already decided my happy medium well in advance. It's 42% for both my pitch and yaw. This, when I let go of the stick, there's a little bit of drift. And now, right there, the control stick drifts a little bit. I mean, I can handle that. Some of you may not. Some of you may want a higher sensitivity. This is a very subjective thing. And again, I'll mirror it with my yaw sensitivity. Then when I'm happy with my control configuration, turn to my bot allies. And remember how OP the Cheka was, oh, so many patches ago. That should get you in the mood for blowing a few of them out of the sky. Yep, feeling pretty good. So my Cliff Notes version on sensitivity is you want just enough to make quick movements when you need to, but not so much that it ruins your controllability. Now, eventually, when aiming, you're going to need to be able to fine-tune your aim. If you notice, I'm having problems doing that right now. Now, since I already have my sensitivity where I want to, I don't want to touch these for this purpose. I mean, lower sensitivity can help you fine-tune, but again, it will ruin my reactability. So for this purpose, I will adjust the non-linearity value. What non-linearity does is disconnects the way the game interprets my stick movements from how I actually physically move my stick. In essence, it makes lower movements of the stick more precise and higher movements less so. Now, for very high nonlinearity values, this is a problem because look at this play on the high end with so little joystick movement. This will have the exact same effect of having a sensitivity 100% and just pulling back as hard as you can immediately. You are going to bounce for sure and rob you of all mobility. It's not ideal. For this reason, I cannot recommend a non-linearity value of any higher than 2. So for testing nonlinearity, I just pick a number, then zoom all the way in, and just make minor adjustments on your stick. And that should equate to minor adjustments on your screen. I want to be able to easily plant my crosshair on a fixed location. That's still a little too twitchy for me. Now, keep in mind, your definition of minor variation on the stick may vary. For like the Thrustmaster Hotax X, this joystick does not have a lot of play on the low end. Just like a minor twitch can equal anywhere between 25 to 50% of my total stick range. So I'll increase my non-linearity and try the experiment again. Now, I feel like I'm having a bit better success. Whether or not I'm actually doing so is up for debate. For your roll axes, I'll just put a non-linearity of 0.2 because I'm a little crazy like that. I don't think it's really necessary. And for my yaw axes, I will mirror my pitch because my joystick rocker kind of works that way. Again, a little nudge on the pitch should equal a little nudge on the screen. A little nudge on the rocker should equal a little nudge on the screen. And I should be able to smoothly move my yaw and pitch. Then we will go back to our obedient puppies. I'm pretty happy with the setup. Now, this wouldn't be a total tutorial if I didn't mention these parameters. Dead zone is exactly what it says on the tin. It implements a dead zone of which the game will ignore your stick inputs. This is useful for a worn-out stick that has lost its centering, but for a perfectly functioning stick, this is not needed. Multiplier imposes a multiplication factor of the amount shown to your stick inputs. So a 0.71 means your stick will only have 0.71% of its total range. This is predominantly useless in all but one situation involving your view controls. Correction imposes a corrective value on where the game will interpret the center of your stick is going to be. Again, if your stick is functioning normally, this is worthless. Though all in all, it's a nice thought gadget. Now that we got our general stick configuration out of the way, it is time to go to a few other aspects that will greatly help you. Namely, the ability to look to the left. You do this by setting your view axes. In this case, I've set my view axes to the hat switch on my stick, and then setting this parameter. Relative control, yes, means your view will slew. Relative control, no, means your view will snap. Now, typically, a snap view of no, without any modifications, will snap all the way behind you. Not ideal. So you can set your relative control to yes for both your X and Y axes. And huzzah, your control and camera will slew and stay there when you release the hat switch. Now this works alright, but some of you are not going to be happy with this, namely because this camera really isn't moving fast enough. But we can do something about that. Increasing the multiplier value will increase the rate at which your camera slews. Much better. Additionally, tooling with the camera smoothness feature will add a smoothing effect to your camera inputs. So you can adjust that as you like it. Also, when using a hat switch to slew your camera, it's probably going to be important to be able to recenter your view immediately. I do this by assigning a button on the stick to reset axes value for both X and Y. War Thunder allows you to set the same button to different functions at the same time. And when I press the button, my view will recenter. Now for those of you who want your view to snap to a preset location and return when you release the hat switch, the answer to that is the same thing, but totally different. Setting a lower multiplier value, if you remember, imposes a maximum limit on how far an axis can go. But if we set a low multiplier, set relative control to no so our view will snap. Same thing on the y-axis. And huzzah! Up, down, left, right, and another button to look behind. So if you don't mind, I kind of like my control setup as it was. One more thing I almost forgot to mention. This is my throttle at maximum. What is wrong with this picture? Oh, if you notice, I am burning the web. In arcade mode, and especially in realistic mode, web is a bit of a valuable commodity. yes, it can give you that massive engine power you need, especially on some of the higher tier aircraft. But right now, I burned it out. Imagine if someone were to jump me right now. I would have to defensive fight without full use of my engine. Now I could baby my throttle and only burn web when I need it, but that takes a little too much coordination from my left hand, which is already dealing with the rudder. So I have a better solution. Let's go into my throttle controls. Now, WEP will engage when my throttle hits 100%. So I'll use a multiplier of 0.99. And that'll keep my WEP from engaging. So when I do want to engage my WEP on command, where are you? Throttle axes? There you are. I can assign a button to maximum value, which is 100%. I have to replace that. I'll deal with this later. I should have saved my old configuration before doing this tutorial. Should have known my older configuration wasn't up to date. Then, boom, WEP on demand. Jolly good. Any other features you cannot possibly live without should be moved to your stick, such as your guns. I bind them all to my trigger, though some of you may want to split them up. Your secondaries. Schlomm's Musk and reload, I could just live with being on the keyboard. Lock target. Combat flaps, if you happen to use them a lot. I keep forgetting they exist. Zoom camera, though using the zoom axes feature is more ideal. I, by virtue of using my rudder on the throttle rocker, have ran out of buttons to work with. So I'm just going to make do with what I have. Target tracking. Enemy, very important for arcade and realistic. And of course, the all-important look behind you, a veritable lifesaver. And finally, export your configuration file if you choose to do so. To do this, hit the Export to File button here. And save it as thus. I will post that configuration file in the description below this video. If you want to import it, download it, hit the Import from File button, and select the configuration. Now with these instructions, you should be off and ready to bash your head against the wall several times over. This is a learning experience, mind you. So don't be too discouraged if you can only come out with a few kills at a time. Remember, a 1-to-1 KD ratio is average. Now, if you excuse me, burn, baby, burn. That would be number 6026, if I'm not mistaken. Have a nice day, people.